Hey everybody, it's Melodian and welcome to Life on the Dirt Road. Yes, I'm leaning a little crooked this today because I'm trying to cover up all the paint cans and everything behind me. We're still remodeling. So just you know the rules. Deal with it, okay? Someday it will all be finished. Now, you all might think that living out here on the dirt road that we just kind of distance ourselves from the day-to-day stuff. I mean, that's why we moved out here, was to get away from all of that, right? Not exactly. Sometimes being out here requires that we be more informed about certain things because people like to try and sneak things past us sometimes, thinking that since we live out here, we don't really care and we won't notice. Couldn't be further from the truth. So today I have a special guest. This is Carrie Perrien Smith. She is a justice of the peace of the Quorum Court, and I will let her explain to you what all of that does. But she's going to talk to us today about why, with the election season coming up, is it so important to know who and what we're voting for and how to find out. Now, before y'all start, I'm just letting you know this is not a political discussion. We are not discussing issues or candidates or anything else. We are just discussing how and why and where to be an informed voter. So, Carrie, welcome.
Thank you, Melodian.
And if you would, please tell us, like I said, what exactly is a justice of the peace? What is the Quorum Court? And what did you do? What do you do and how did you get there?
Well, very good. Thank you. And I will try to make this as generic as possible and as evergreen as possible. Because right now, as we speak, we are about 45 days from the 2022 general election. And so, of course, this is go time for somebody like me who's running for reelection. But I want you to be able to come back and see this video again in 2 years when it's 2024, or when it's next year and you maybe have a school board election. Because I think all of these races are very important. And as we see the spotlight on the national races so much in the national politics, I want you to know that local politics is still the most important level of government. There's a lot of things that we can push out, but states still have rights. And they have, we have a state constitution that kind of keeps the federal government from overreach when they can. There's a lot of challenge to that now. So I think it's a good time to just lean into that conversation. It is super easy to not be paying attention to what's going on locally because these local races, your local media doesn't really have a lot of time, space for pages or words on the page of a newspaper. Reporters even, they just don't cover local governments like they should. So in Arkansas, which is where I live, I serve on the Benton County Quorum Court, and that is in Northwest Arkansas. And the town seat is Bentonville, which is the home office of Walmart, just to give you sort of a landmark for us. We are the second largest county in the state of Arkansas, followed by Washington County, which has Fayetteville, and then Pulaski, which is the state capital in central Arkansas, Little Rock. The state of Arkansas calls our county legislative body the Quorum Court, and the people who serve on it are the justices of the peace. And so, yes, we marry people, but you might not realize this, that a lot of elected officials can marry people. But you think back into the old days of the West, you went to see the justice of the peace to get married. And so, yeah, I do occasionally marry somebody. But anyway, but we are county legislators. In all but 7 states, they call these justices of the peace county commissioners or something similar to that.
We're good. Let's go. Okay. So yes, you mentioned that the local elections are more or as at least important as national and statewide. And yet I don't see the attention. I understand why the media doesn't pay attention to it, but why do you think it is that so many people don't understand how important their local elections are?
People are busy. So many people get really engaged and are paying attention to it when it's, you got all these paid ads coming out down your Facebook message stream, and people are sending you stuff, and your mailbox is full of announcements from candidates that have budgets, and you're paying attention. But after you're done with election season, well, guess what's next? Thanksgiving, and then Christmas, and then Christmas break, and so there's all these things that disengage you. In the state of Arkansas, we go into the legislative session that happens every other year in January. And so I think that there's real importance in understanding what's going on in your state legislature when they are in session, because what they're doing is they're making laws that could make your life better or worse, or harder or easier. And we just have too many laws. That's just the way it is.
So I know we all see the ads, and so many people make their decision just based on the advertising they see, or unfortunately, especially if it is a local election, because they think they know the person, they've seen them, they've seen them elsewhere. They're a celebrity, a local celebrity, or they're a media figure or something. They see them, they think they know them, and so they make their decisions based on that. But where do we go if we actually want to find out, like, a candidate's positions on things, or if they're already in office, how they voted? Where do we get this information? Where can we look?
It's very difficult to know where to look for all of it. If they're already an elected official, they do have a footprint. So a lot of, I know here in Arkansas, they passed legislation a session or two ago that required all the government bodies to record their meetings. Hopefully they make that available on the internet. It might be that you have to request the recordings or links to the recordings, but I would hope that by now, all of your local government meetings, including the committees, because that's where the real action is, are being recorded, and maybe they're live streamed across Facebook. I know our government meetings are. And it's really just a good place to go back and kind of see what your legislators are doing. I know there's some meetings I participate a lot, ask a lot of questions, and then there's some meetings where to me, it's like, okay, these are easy issues. Like in county government and in city government, your city councils, or for us, our quorum court, is our job really as city and county level legislators is to help move good policy forward. But most of what we do is approve a budget, where we approve the expenditures that we're going into the budget for the next year. And then when it comes time to spend that money, we approve the expenditure of that budget item. And so we get two shots at it, really. And that's really the bulk of what we do. You may pass a resolution that may ordain a county road as a memorial dedication. You might get a chance, like we did with this American Rescue Plan money that was being funneled out of a federal piece of legislation to counties and cities all across our country. You might have a chance to, turn that down. We could have turned it down. But we also said, you know what, taxpayers are going to have to pay this money back. So why don't we go ahead and accept the money and put it to work in our community? And so we had a lot of meetings around that. So Melanie, I don't know if I answered your question properly, but those are the kinds of things that you will see by going back and listening to a recording. And also there'll be notes, and so usually you can look for the minutes of a meeting and go back to see who was there. Like, we have a city council member here locally, his attendance is not that great. There's a footprint for that. Those kind of things kind of give you help. The media doesn't cover everything. Even if you follow groups that follow either conservative or liberal channels of thought, they won't cover every single issue. And so there's sometimes issues get out there, and the only way you know is by going back and listening to the meetings. Our state legislature, you can watch the sessions live. and you can listen to the debate and listen to people speak for or against certain things. I find this incredibly helpful to see who is engaged. I find it really, I mean, this is such a blinding flash of the obvious, but we don't do it as voters. And that's call your elected officials and call your candidates. Hardly anybody calls them. And it's really important to find out why they're running. Why should you vote for them? And just ask, what the key issues are.
So there's no, I don't remember how long ago it was. I was trying to remember, but it was a few presidential elections ago. I thought I knew who I wanted to vote for, but I was hearing things. And so I found this website, and it was a non-biased, non-partisan website that listed every candidate running for president and where they stood on the key issues. And it actually did make me change my mind. And I haven't seen that website up anymore. And I was just wondering, so is there anything like that you are aware of, like a central site that houses all the candidates and what their positions are? And
It because it varies. And the thing that you always need to look at these is which side are they on? You always have to ask that question, because if somebody is paying them to do this, and we can't even trust the media to be not biased anymore. So it used to be, remember, you go, oh, Walter Cronkite was this guy that we could really trust for unbiased media. I know. And so even the media, you can tell that, I mean, even like, for instance, Fox News, they aren't for all Republicans. They're like even biased. And so it's, even though you go, oh, they're going to give you straight up information about conservative news. No, they're not. The days of unbiased journalism are gone. So I think you always have to look at that stuff, kind of in the back of your mind, go, okay, is this, what angle are they coming from? Because, I mean, hang on. Okay, I'm trying to think of which direction I want to go on this one. So one of the things that I can tell you from writing for business for as many years as I can is that you can take written comments and you can write them in such a way that it leads the reader down one direction or another. So even though it appears unbiased, it isn't. So anyway, so you really have to be kind of aware of what's important to you. I think the thing to always remember is that we're not going to like 100% of what our candidates are running on. We are not going to like 100% of what it is that they do while they're in office. And I think it's important that we not be one issue voters. That's probably the biggest danger to democracy, is not to really understand. You pretty much have a two-party system here in the United States. We have other parties that do run, but basically all the money is sent up through the Republican and Democratic parties and funneled out. And they do a ton of advocacy work that affects what happens in every single legislative body in the country. So they do want to influence you. And it's important that you really understand platforms and all of the list of items that might come under a platform. Like many years ago, I took a survey where it would ask you the right questions to help you decide, were you more Republican? Were you more Democrat? Were you libertarian? Which, if you know anything about libertarians, they kind of cross platform issues. They tend to be much more fiscally conservative, but socially liberal. So anyway, So I had to come back to this survey, and it was on the internet. It might still be out there, another one like this. I had to come back 3 times. I didn't know back then how I felt about energy policy. I didn't really, I mean, I thought I knew what I felt about the economy. Um, and so there's all these different categories. And I think it really starts with you knowing what's important to you and looking at your candidates through that lens. Like we have a city council race coming up. My neighborhood has had a ton of zoning issues. The city council race is a nonpartisan issue or a nonpartisan race. And so I think it's important that all of our neighbors get together and look at all of these candidates through the view of how would they vote in particular zoning issues that affect our neighborhood. Um, and I think you can do that. When I was looking through 2016 presidential candidates, I liked them all. I thought, there was a whole bunch of them that I liked a lot. And so what I did was ask myself, how important is leadership experience? Because we had some that had been in the Senate and nothing else. I mean, they'd run their law firm, but it was a small law practice. They'd literally been lifelong politicians, and they were running for president. And so I asked myself, what was important to me? What did I think in the short time that I had been following politics would be important to their success? And I ended up looking at it through the lens of who had actually run a large organization. Well, that thinned out the crowd right there. And there was you went from a dozen candidates to 3. And so that helps us to really understand our personal feelings and what's important to us.
Okay, that makes sense. So you brought up 2016, and I was going to try to skirt around that one, but you opened the door. So after 2016, and especially after 2020, I know there are a whole lot of people out there that are thinking, I'm not even going to bother to vote this year because it doesn't really matter anyway. All the elections are rigged. They're going to pick who they're going to pick. And I actually heard someone say, okay, so the Republicans had a term, and then it was the Democrats' turn, and now in 2024 it'll be the Republicans' turn again, and we're just gonna, and it's like, I don't think it works that way, but okay. So honestly, truly, does my vote count?
Well, as someone who lost a race in the runoff by 40 votes, and I can go through my voter list today and tell you which of my friends thought their vote wasn't that important and needed, and they didn't show up. There's more than 40 people that could have showed up to vote in that race. I can tell you that every vote is important. For presidential races, I mean, we have the electoral college at that level, but man, I can tell you, I see races here all the time for the state legislature that are within a dozen votes. City council races, I mean, and we're not in Podunk, Arkansas here. Some of these races are super tight, and it really matters that you vote. And there's a lot of people that do not cast a vote in every single section on your ballot, and you don't have to. Sometimes you can decide you don't like either candidate and take a principled stand and say, I'm not casting a vote for either one of them. And those undervotes, as they're called, show up on the total thing, the total count. As somebody who came to vote that was a constituent and they did not bother to cast a vote in your race. And sometimes enough undervotes say, hey, despite the fact that this person has been in office and they spent a lot of money and people didn't vote for them, that's probably a good reason to maybe run somebody against them in the next cycle. Maybe, indicates that, yeah, there are people that think they're not doing a great job. So, and there's races out there. Also where people just don't know who to vote for, and they don't want to screw it up and vote for the wrong person, so they don't cast a ballot in that. And so we have our community college trustee races on this one. Well, nobody ever knows what a community college trustee does, let alone get a piece of information for them on their election. We have school board races, and it's hard to find out because those races don't have a lot of money behind them. And in fact, if they do, you need to ask some questions, and you need to go, okay, I do need to look at, if you're getting mailers, you need to look beyond the mailers and go, why is there so much money behind this candidate? So I don't know. Did I answer that, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, basically I want my vote counts. That's the thing. That's what we wanted to know. Because like we've spent the last 8 years basically being told that, well, even before that, because I still remember Al Gore and Bush, you know, we were told that our votes don't count, that the Justice Department or you know, somebody else is going to decide it in the end for us anyway, so it doesn't really matter if we show up or not. And
Well, let me add something back in here as well. It's really important that a lot of times people see the surveys and they go, oh my goodness, my candidate isn't doing that well. And oh, it doesn't matter. We can't elect anybody anyway. And then I knocked on the door of a guy who was a different party than me. And it caught me off guard because he goes, well, I don't vote. He goes, we can't win here. So I don't even bother to go vote. And I thought how sad that is, that I mean, and in my race, he had somebody he could have voted for that was that party. I mean, it would have made a difference. His voice was heard. But I will also tell you that I know enough about these surveys to know that the language is geared in such a way to make you vote a certain way. And that also sometimes will skew survey results and then who they surveyed. There's all kinds of ways. I mean, I pull my voter list and I profile my voter list on who I should go talk to. I'm not going to go knock on the doors of people who, would not vote for me. I think there's people out there that go, oh, well, she's that party. I can hold my nose and vote for her because she does good things for her community. I mean, there's that. But the thing is, they actually gear these surveys with either the pollies or the way they direct the questioning to make it look like one candidate is doing better than another candidate. And so again, this is, eyes wide open. Don't get discouraged by what you're hearing on surveys in the media. If you've got a candidate that you go, you know what, this candidate ticks at least most of the boxes. They might tick all the boxes if you're, 2 or 3 items are really important to you. Stay with them to the finish line. Go cast the vote. Vote as early as you can. We're seeing early voting regulations charged around the country, or changed, or what's the word I'm looking for? Challenged around the country. I found out Virginia has 45 days of early voting. 45 days. I mean, we have 2 weeks.
But okay.
Yeah, and there are some parties that are asked to vote early, and some, like conservatives are, typically day of election voters. It's just something that they always do. I don't know if they're always waiting for the other shoe to drop or the media to come up with something new, but there's a lot of conversation out around whether you should just, especially with the, right now election fraud is a big conversation, and we have seen evidence that there's election fraud in some states. I have not really seen that we've got that issue in Arkansas, or at least where we are in Arkansas. But every election can have fraud. So as much as if you're that person who says, they're just going to steal the election anyway, because there's a group of people out there that says that, vote anyway. My candidate is behind. It doesn't matter if I vote anyway. I'm just telling you, there will be a day when you will wish that you had taken every single chance to vote. And I have a lot of elections that I did not vote in, did not do my homework in, went to the ballot box and said, she's a woman, I'm a woman, I'll vote for her. That you will never regret the time that you spend getting ready to vote and voting. Your vote counts.
So I know that laws vary state by state, but are there like some general, I guess, national level guidelines for who is eligible to vote?
It varies race by race. And like for most races out there, 51% of the vote is what makes you eligible to serve in that office. That's it, which is kind of scary. And that's why it's really important that we don't just put anybody in certain races. Now, if you're running for state Supreme Court justice, there are some rules. Your, your presidential candidates have to be born here. Um, they have to be a certain age, and all these races kind of vary. You would hope that your your voters are paying enough attention to really weigh people's qualifications and things like that. But I've watched people be elected that only had a high school education to be the mayor of their town, and it wasn't like a little tiny town. It was a town, with a huge budget, and they make a lot of decisions. And there's over 60,000 people that live there, and I'm just losing against much more qualified people. So money is a great determining factor, and the ability to go out and get votes and the ability to raise money really in most races determine the qualifications of that candidate.
Okay, so you've convinced me I need to vote. And I'm been voting ever since. That was something I looked forward to, was the day I was going to be old enough to vote. So yes, because I come from a town where you needed to vote. Okay, everybody needed to get out and vote.
Well, and that's great, because I grew up in a family where my parents were never registered to vote. My mom actually cast her first ballot choices in the 2020 election. So my dad always thought, oh, voting is a waste of time. And we didn't talk about things like this at home. And I was just unaware. And I was actually, when I was in college, my friend, who was a punk rock girl, who was also conservative, and she was like registering all her friends to vote. And so I went to college, and she gave us a ride to the county clerk's office, and we filled out our voter registration forms. And then she gave us a ride to go vote. And that was like I voted for Reagan. I mean, she was a huge Reagan fan. It was just hilarious. And so I always credit her with being the person who helped me register to vote for the first time.
But for those of us who are not yet registered, are there like, again, I think it varies state to state about who can vote and who can't, but are there like national requirements for people that, in order to be able to vote?
This is where your state rights come in. There's some crazy stuff going on at the national level that want to they want to let people who are not naturalized citizens who have come in here without proper documentation be able to vote. I would hope that we aren't heading that direction. I like to believe that states still have the ability to control their elections. In Arkansas here, we do require voter ID, and that's been challenged multiple times. But we have to be 18 and a naturalized citizen, and I think it's still one of the most amazing voters that I get to meet, or where I end up on the doorstep of a household and the person that comes to the door is not a voter yet. And he goes, oh, I can't vote. And I said, well, there must be somebody that lives here that is a voter. And he goes, oh, it's my wife. He goes, but next election, I will have my citizenship and I will get to cast my first vote in that election. I mean, that right there is so amazing. I mean, because just the process to be a naturalized citizen is a lengthy one that born and raised in Americans don't really understand. I mean, we just don't understand how lucky that we have it here. So there are some rules when you are registering to vote, and I tell people there's a lot of sketchiness out there. We've got Motor Voter here in Arkansas, and I have watched votes get hung up in the approval process afterwards. They get challenged as a provisional vote because Motor Voter didn't get your information where it needed to go at the county clerk's office. So the county clerk's office is who keeps track of all the county voters, and it's not a perfect process. I mean, I pull my voter list and I see people who are still on my voter list after they've relocated 4 years ago or 6 years ago. I mean, there's a guy that used to rent my house that I live in now. He's still on the voter list, and his party people came to the door wanting to know if he still lived here. And I'm going, no, he doesn't live here. He doesn't even live in the state. He lives in Florida. I mean, I've got somebody from the neighborhood that lives that moved to Arizona. I know another person, they moved to Georgia. I know another person, they moved to California. They've been gone long enough for them to not be on the list anymore. So voter data, just as it is with people moving around a lot, is really not very clean data. And I find this very, very concerning for a lot of reasons, because that right there is where you start to question voter fraud, and so your voter rolls really matter for that reason. I think that when we are, I always tell people here, you can go ahead and download your form on the internet. We do not in Arkansas have online registration, but you can download the form. You can mail it to the county clerk's office. I tell people to take it in personally. Now, my county clerk isn't that excited about that. She's perfectly happy with mail and not having them stand there and look at her while she checks the data. And our county clerk's office is great. I don't have any problems with the people or anything like that, but I still think there's real value in carrying it in and making sure that it got processed, because you want to make sure that your voter data is clean. When you go to vote, it will take you a lot less time. And then also, I would think that most websites are like Arkansas, where you have the chance to look at your voter registration online and make sure that your address is right, your name is spelled right. Like if you go check ours on the Secretary of State's website, it will tell you your name and then your birth date and address and all of that stuff. And in most cases, that affects who you're voting for. Like we have vote centers where we can vote anywhere in the county, but it needs to know that my district and my address is right so that it will give me the proper candidates. And then also mine gives me my early voting locations, my day of election voting locations, and that's super helpful. And then also way down at the bottom, cleverly hidden, is a PDF of my ballot. And I think this is the best prep tool that you can use so that you show up prepared. I recommend that people take that and then research all the candidates. So anyway, you think, oh yeah, I'm registered to vote. And I took that for granted until I was really involved in the process as a candidate. And man, there's so many ways to get tripped up with your voter registration. So don't be a provisional voter. Don't risk getting your vote cast out, and don't get hung up in the check-in line to go vote by not knowing that your voter registration is clean.
I really like that you mentioned the PDF of the ballot, because I did not know that was there until actually you mentioned it one time. And yeah, because a lot of issues are also on ballots, and if you don't understand, they're worded so that you really have to know. And there was a couple times that I voted for something and then was like, oh, wait a minute, that is not what I wanted to vote for. Okay.
Oh yeah.
That's what I did vote for, because I didn't read it. It was worded weirdly, and it's like, what? So knowing that's there now lets me pull that up and actually sit and read them carefully. I don't feel like I'm being rushed because there's a line behind me. I get to go dig through it, and then I get to go do my research and be like, okay, what exactly are you saying here? What is this issue? what am I voting for or against? And it really has helped. So I do thank you for pointing out that was there, because I feel much more informed on some of the issues now, because you're not just voting for candidates anymore. Now you're also voting on issues, and some of those issues are really important.
Yeah, and I tell people that they hide the stuff they don't want you to see at the very end. So, and of course I'm a career editor, and so I read stuff backwards to frontwards a lot of times. I read the page upside down, all that stuff. But like for instance, several years ago, um, we had a bill that it was titled an ethics bill. And it actually was the stuff that it lined out was stuff that candidates were already required to do. Elected officials were already required to do. But down at the very end, it had a section that said, hey, we're going to also extend term limits. Longer term limits said no voter ever. Yeah, sign me up. So anyway, that's kind of my practice is kind of go to the end and see what's out there. I mean, we have 3 ballot issues that the state legislature is allowed to bring every election cycle. And so I've already been through those. We have a couple of Sunday alcohol sales. We're still a blue state. And so a lot of we don't have Sunday alcohol sales everywhere. And so in Rogers, where I live, in Bentonville, which is our really 2 biggest cities here in the county that I live in, and heavily influenced by Walmart, we are going to the ballot to say yes, we want Sunday alcohol sales or no. And I voters are going to say yes to that. Not everybody I mean, I have to admit, I hardly ever buy alcohol on Sunday, and or find myself in a store and go, oh, I'd really like to have that bottle of wine. So I think probably we're at that place. But our county hasn't even been wet that long. We were a dry county until probably 10 years ago. And the border cities, because we're in Northwest Arkansas, and the border cities along the Oklahoma border and the Missouri, especially the Missouri border, they were losing, convenience stores were losing a lot of sales, of the alcohol sales, to Missouri, because they could just drive another mile or 2.
Yeah.
Gosh, we need to go buy some liquor for a party or something like that. We would just drive over the line to Missouri, and we would buy our groceries and our stuff for the party while we were there. So you can imagine how a business owner who maybe owns a convenience store or something like that is just watching tax dollars leak out. So anyway, so we haven't done a countywide, you know, Sunday alcohol sales ballot measure, but they went ahead and did Rogers and Bentonville. Another thing we have on the ballot this time is recreational marijuana. And so that's there's a lot to consider with that. And this one's a pretty big challenge because it's been brought through by an organization that really wants to monopolize it. And so there are a lot of reasons I think that hopefully voters who love entrepreneurs and the ability for a fair playing field for everybody, will probably go, okay, try again next time. So anyway, there's 10 states out there that have recreational marijuana, and there's a lot of good data out there for voters to work with. But again, it's like, where do you find it? You got to pay attention. And anyway, but definitely read your ballot issues, and hopefully there'll be information out there for or against. I know that we have one little city up here that also has a POA, and so they will sometimes have information out there. There'll be sales tax not sales tax ballot issues that may raise your sales tax. Now, those ballot issues could also lower your sales tax, and you need to ask for that. Just saying. And also your property tax millages, which is that number that your your assessor uses to decide how much property tax is. So you'd be really surprised to know just what percentage, like almost half here locally, goes to just our public school system. My school district gets like 42% of the property tax I pay in on my house. I mean, once you start looking at that, it just blows you away. So there's a lot of issues out there that really are far beyond the candidates, because you could elect a candidate and then you could, after they get into office, you just advocate constantly until they listen to you. Um, I still believe that candidates listen to their constituents where they live and who voted for them.
Some of them do. I can tell you who does, because they know me, because I write to them a lot.
I tell you, I love to see advocacy. I love it when voters come to public forums and they speak on something that matters. It's so rare, and it's I see an issue where we get an entire room full of angry people, and it's always rooted in, and I say always, but if you really go back and really look at how this all happened, if whatever that issue is that they're trying to advocate one way or the other is, it's because they were asleep at the wheel to start with. As voters, we have to constantly stay engaged, because we think, oh, well, they ran on this, they're going to vote this way. But you get into a lot of issues and it becomes very gray. Even if you said, oh, I voted party platform straight down the line. Well, why aren't they voting like conservatives? It's like, well, once you get into this, it's really easy to make that conversation that this isn't a conservative or a liberal or a moderate issue. It's something completely different. And so there's a lot that's way outside politics. Just kind of the framework of political platforms and parties. That there's a real reason for you to stay engaged even after you get that elected official in. And yeah, you're going to be if you didn't elect them and they weren't your candidate to start with, you're going to hate it every time you have to call them, and every time they don't listen to you, you think, but stay with it. I've always gotten a lot out of those constituents that I know they didn't vote for me, but they stayed engaged. And it takes a lot of courage as an elected official to sit across the table from them face to face. But be willing to do that. I've always learned a lot about their position, made me think a little bit more, a little deeper about the way I felt about things. And, we came away with mutual respect. And so I would just challenge you to do that. Don't just, walk silently to the ballot box and turn your eyes away.
They do listen, because childhood or food insecurity is one of my big things, having grown up poor, and it irks me no end that 1 in 4 children in Arkansas goes to bed hungry, basically. And I have been such a pain in their side parts about that I've actually been invited down to Little Rock to listen to committee meetings and stuff, because it's like, oh yeah, because that's that one that's always bugging us about why is that. So yeah, I mean, they do listen. So
yeah, and something else I would
important to you, get out there and advocate for it.
Yeah, if you have information and research on something, it's really helpful to your elected officials to be willing to testify. If you've got a legislator out there that maybe doesn't know about your personal field as much, but they are casting a vote. Remember what I said, 51% of the vote is what qualified them to serve you in that office. They are not subject matter experts. And it's really important that you make yourself available. If you're a massage therapist and you have information about the industry, your legislator, I can almost guarantee you, has no experience as a massage therapist. We're a funeral director. They're voting on something that impacts funeral directors, and they may think, oh, this is written in such a way that sounds great, this is wonderful, I'm going to vote for it. Well, I think I'm going to call the funeral director in my town and ask them about it. And they turn around and go, holy cow, do you know what that would do to our business? I mean, do you know how hard we would do? And here's, they give us some rationale. And that's how the funeral director ends up speaking in front of the state legislature about the problem with this bill. So I can't stress enough the need for subject matter experts to step up and be out there and don't just talk to your state representative or your state senator. Make yourself available to all of them, because yours may not be on the right committee. They may not really like your position on it. So to be willing to say, hey, this is an issue that is important for my industry, and I am well read and researched and have experience on this particular topic. You don't have to be working in the field. You don't have to have a certification that says you are. You just have to have a compelling argument. That's really helpful. And so, and that's why I tell people, like with the Quorum Court, we've got 15 people that represent districts in our county. And they'll reach out to their one JP and go, well, they didn't respond to me. Well, I said, well, they probably read it. I said, you need to tell all your JPs, because if you've got a piece of information that you need for us to hear that is going to affect the way we vote, we all have a vote for you. I mean, we are elected to represent a particular district, but if you have information, share it with all of them. Share it with all your state representatives, because one of them is going to be on the committee. You can find the committee assignments on the state legislature website and see who is on what committees. So you might want to just be involved with them, and providing them information and being a subject matter expert resource for them. So yeah, we're kind of deep now, but I'm like, hey, after you vote, there's more. There's more.
Okay, then last question. You can get really deep on this one. So if for everybody that's watching who was like, wow, I had no idea, I am ready, I really need to get more involved in the whole political process, how do we start?
How do we start?
Where do we start?
Well, you got an election coming up. We're 40 plus days out, and go see if you can download your ballot yet. And if you can, so you go vote, and you don't even have to download your ballot yet. Go look at your voter registration. My voter registration card has all of my districts. Find out who your state representatives that are running. Find your state, and not everybody's running opposed. So you may have a district on there, like my senator is not running opposed, and so he'll be on the ballot. I can cast a vote or whatever, but I don't have a decision to make in that race. And we have, a constitutional office or something that I don't think that is opposed. So you have some races out there like that. But find out, who are your elected officials, and your voter registration will show all of that. It will probably not show the names of the people that currently represent you. But start doing some research. You should start seeing a lot of mailers in your mailbox. I would say, election time usually, it gets really hot and heavy after Labor Day. But I'm seeing a lot of stuff really not hit until the absentee ballots go out. And so here in Arkansas, our absentee ballots go out 30 days before the election. So we'll start seeing those pretty soon. But it's, use those mailers to kind of see how you like. Do not use them to determine whether that's who you vote for. But sort of, see who's in the game. There's a lot of really great candidates out there that don't have a lot of money. Something that I want to put on your radar, I wish I had, I should have gotten out a mailer, and I don't know that I can do this, show you very close, but down here, see if I can get it where the light isn't on it. It says paid for by campaign to elect Carrie Perrien Smith. You're going to get a lot of mailers, and they don't necessarily come from the candidate's campaign. So I would always check for that line when you're, kind of sorting out your mailers. And I've knocked on the doors of voters, and they come to the door with their stack of mailers, and they go, okay, because they know I'm their people, and I know they're my people because I've looked at their voter registration, right? I've looked at their voter data that says, hey, they're my people. They're most likely to vote for me. So anyway, they come with their stack of like push cards and postcards and all the other stuff that they've gotten, and they go, so tell me what you know about these people. I mean, I'm literally having to know my stuff on the community college trustee and all of that. So you can talk to other people. There's a lot of voter influencing that happens over coffee at the country club, and coffee with your friends, and coffee at bridge, and little things. I had it was so hilarious during 2016. I was running a mayor's race, and I would have these people that would come, I knock on their door, and we'd talk for a minute, and they'd go, so what do you think of Trump? And it was just, they always whispered. It was hilarious, but they didn't have anybody else to ask, and they wanted to know somebody who was politically engaged. What did they think? Ask other candidates what they think. Now, some of them will be very sly, and go very, kind of like, I don't want to make anybody mad because I might have to work with this person later, but some of them will tell you as well. Ask, go to your political party affiliation. If you affiliate, and like on my voter list, 15% of people identify as any political party designation. The other 85% would consider themselves independents. So it may or may not be up to date, but 85% of the people out there are not paying attention to. They're not really one party or the other. 10% of people, I understand, watch cable news. So you might watch cable news and you go, oh, I can't believe this. It's like they're going down this way or this way. And, 90% of the people out there are not watching cable news. So there's a lot of influence actions out there that are just random people being random voters about random stuff. So if you think you're the only one, I mean, ask yourself, who do I know that's like-minded, and what are they paying attention to? I get people asking me when it gets close to voting time, what do you think about this candidate? Which one are you picking? And I try to be as objective as possible and go, okay, here's what I like about this candidate, because I want them to not be a one-issue voter as well. I want to give them, these are the great things about this particular candidate. And if I have real concerns about a particular candidate, I will voice that concern in as fair a way as I can. So people identify me as being in the know because I attend political party meetings, and I'm running for office, and I'm out talking to a ton of people. You've got friends like this. Find out who they are. Have those awkward conversations, and definitely go, and here's the one thing that I always tell people. I'm always willing to sit and cross and have a conversation about politics over coffee, because I'm the person who knows how to ask questions. So tell me why you feel that way. So tell me what you're thinking about this particular issue. We've got a jail issue, and I love to ask people, so how are you feeling about that jail issue? What can I tell you about it that you don't already know, so you can make a better informed decision? I might, and I might be guilty of influencing the way that I choose which information I share, but I do try to be I try to get to know them and know what's important to them. So I don't, because I could tell them a ton of stuff that till their eyes would glaze over, right? But most people are just the facts man, and so if I ask the right questions up front, find out what's important to them, And then, because there's a lot of people I know that are the same political party as me, but you get into the primary season, and like our Republican primaries are decided races are decided in the primary. A lot of times we don't have Democrats running in our district up here. And so, we'll have 4 really strong Republican candidates. And so I just try to be as fair as I can as I explain where their positions are, and especially as once I understand what's important to that voter. That voter may be an economy voter 100%, or or they may be a pro-life voter, and they want to know that. And so I try to kind of, because occasionally we have some voters that haven't made a decision on every single section of their platform, or of their party's platform. So I think it's good to get face to face, ask questions. If you're new to politics, new to paying attention to politics, afraid, you've been told by your parents you don't talk about religion or politics. My gosh, if you're not willing to step into controversial topics and figure out why people think one way or the other, gosh, how are you ever going to have your own critical thought? You don't have to be prepared to disagree. I mean, there's a lot of times I go, wow, they don't, I'm glad I know their viewpoint. I'm not going to change their mind. And I'm just happy to listen to them, and they feel enriched because I did take the time to listen to them. And it always gives me a lot to think about. So ask some questions, just, ask people, why do you like that candidate? What do you think about that candidate? And you can always follow up after you do some research on that candidate. You've gone to hear them at a forum. I mean, we have candidate forums. A lot of the candidates do really intimate one-on-one little Facebook chats where it's just, hey, I'm going to pop a camera down in front of me and I'm going to just have a heart-to-heart with my constituency about a particular topic I feel strongly about. I have not done that in a while, and I thought, man, I need to do that. I'm seeing some first-time school board candidates do that, and it's really, really cool. And then
Coco.
Sometimes I know it's Coco. Coco's always the barker, so she loves Zoom calls. She's missed them a great deal.
I'll tell you one more
yeah,
place where you can corner them.
okay.
I discovered this year, because it is an election year, and because I am in that, being on the board of directors of one, and being actively involved with a couple other nonprofits, charity fundraisers. There is always at least somebody there running for office, and it's a great chance for you to corner them and talk to them.
Yeah.
I have changed my vote for one because he wasn't paying any attention. He was just giving me lip service, and you could tell right away that he was just you could tell right away. So it's like, yeah, okay, you're not getting my vote because you're not even listening to me. So, okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Now I do have to say, charity fundraisers are a great place for them to connect. I have a tendency, because I'm a small district, where, and I ran into this. I used to do our little city summer festival, and I would get a booth and all of this stuff. And what I found, because I always would ask people, where do you live? Well, what I found at my little downtown festival is like 20% of the people could vote for me. And now, and that was a municipal at-large race where everybody who lived in the city limits could vote. That was a lot bigger constituency than what I have now. And so now it's like I go, I'm not going to do that. I may show up, but for me, I mean, it's the best use of my time is going door to door. And I think it's really important also to open the door for your candidate. I mean, hopefully your candidate, I mean, you learn so much by getting eyeball to eyeball with these people. And I've learned how to be charming on a Ring doorbell. And and now you can leave messages on that. I thought that's crazy. man, that technology. But there's so many people that are like, no, I don't want to talk politics. And I'm going, well, you're going to be really hurting because I don't have a big budget. Nobody in my race has a big budget. And you're going to sit there and see my name and my opponent's name on the ballot, and you're not going to know who to vote for. What a golden opportunity I just gave you. So open the door, call the candidate, go to some political party meetings. I have independent friends who go both to Republican meetings and go to Democrat meetings. You know, pay attention, get where you can ask questions. And even their government meetings, there's a lot of times you have a chance to, I mean, my constituents could totally corner me after my quorum court meetings and talk to me. It's been one of the things I used to do was to go early enough to talk to people who were in the audience. And it's just, this year was really crazy with all the American Rescue Plan meetings and stuff like that, that I just kind of got away from that. And then also after COVID happened, people didn't necessarily want to be face to face close to you talking. And, because they kind of wanted their space. And so that, I think that was probably one of the reasons that I didn't, and we got away from in-person meetings, but, most of our meetings, you could bowl down the aisles of our meeting. There's just nobody there. I mean, if we're lucky, we have the top county elected officials come, and a few department heads. It does my heart good when people come and sit through our meetings and attend our committee meetings and speak at public forum about what's important to them. It's really important.
Well, I really appreciate you talking to us. I'm going to finish up with one statement. It's what I tell my kids and grandkids when they were, I don't know if I want to vote. Here's the deal. If you don't take an active part in the political process and you don't vote and you don't stand up for our country and our democracy, then you don't get to bitch when things don't go the way you want. Okay? That's just how that works. If you don't like what's going on, get up and do something about it. And if you don't want to do something about it, then sit down and shut up. That's just my take.
Well, that's exactly right. And there is a lot of decisions that are being made that will affect your grandchildren's life someday. Those decisions right now matter, and their voice, it's nothing else. It's just walking them through that process to understand how to decide who you're going to vote for. And, I love it when I see people taking their brand new 18-year-old voter for the first time through the entire process. I love it when they don't vote for people like me, and I love it when they do. I just think it's so important. And I see voter behavior when I look at these households. They don't even all agree inside the household. So it's hilarious. I know. I look at, I go, wow, that person pulled a Democrat ballot, and that person, the spouse pulled a Republican ballot. Yeah. How did they decide? At general election time, you kind of get a chance you get everybody, but yeah, it's really funny. I always think that's curious.
Yeah, so we didn't get to the point of we weren't speaking to each other like some families I read about or heard about, but we had some heated discussions the last few races. There was some very animated conversations about issues and candidates and but we all came out of it on the other side, and we're all still friends, and we're all still family, and we're all still speaking to each other. And in a couple of cases, we were able to change the other one's minds, or at least made them step back and take a second look at like, well, maybe you got something there. So
I know, right? Well, and I think it's exciting to, I'm the person whose spouse goes, tell me who to vote for. And I send him in with like a list that I made him. And there's been a couple of times where I said, hey, I don't have a choice in this race. I don't like either candidate. You go ahead and do whatever you're going to do.
So. All righty, lady. Well, thank you very much for this. I hope everybody listens and takes it to heart and goes and votes. It's so important.
Yes, it is more important now than ever.
And for people in Arkansas, in case they do have questions, how do they find you?
You can find me at, I have a brand new domain name, carrieworksforyou.com. That's CARRIE, worksforyou.com. So
Okay.
you can find me on Instagram, Getter, Facebook, and Twitter. So,
Awesome.
and did I say Instagram? Instagram.
Yes. All righty. Well, thank you very much. And I'm going to close this up now. So,
All righty.
all right, thanks.